are no longer a Christian nation.
Last night I dreamt about how things were.
Of every enemy of the state!
And then I woke up here.
Somebody didn't want the gray state investigated, explored, and unveiled. That's why David Crowley is dead. He was the writer and director of one of the most controversial movies in modern history. And somebody didn't want him to produce it. What was so threatening about David Crowley and the gray state concept? Like Gray State, many Hollywood films have depicted apocalyptic themes and end-of-the-world scenarios. Yet the directors of these films are still alive. Roland Emmerich wasn't murdered after directing blockbusters 2012 and A Day After Tomorrow. Steven Soderbergh wasn't killed after his movie, Contagion. But David Crowley is dead, along with his wife and child. They were killed before the production could be completed. What was so dangerous about Gray State? David Crowley claimed that his movie was based on real events, not Hollywood propaganda like you see in movies such as 2012.
California is going down!
God, you sound like a crazy person. The governor just said we're fine now.
The guy's an actor, he's reading a script!
So the Gray State is essentially an artistic representation of real aspects put into a fictional format. Once you open your eyes and start looking at all these trends like RFID, like martial law, like FEMA, like executive orders, you have to act within your own capacity to sort of, talk about this. A lot of people filter that into the political realm. A lot of people do other things like grassroots style. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, Danny's an actor. So we put our heads together and we started making a project that would act within our own faculty to portray that in a creative manner. So there's a story here. You know, I have to start telling a story. So I was looking for the next film project to work on anyway. I'm like, well, this would be perfect. And it's not really perfect because you have to kind of filter down all this stuff into a narrative storyline that's not just propaganda telling you what's going to happen next, like 2012 or A Day After Tomorrow. It's got to be a human story, and it's got to be enduring and compelling. The way we're different is we're independent, and we don't expect any participation from any studios just because of its contentious nature. I mean, anyone knows that Hollywood has not approached this topic so directly before. That's what makes Gray State so compelling. Is that different? Definitely the trailer is our best efforts to kind of show this world and expose these very real issues that exist in our world today.
David claims that Hollywood has never dealt with topics like RFID, internment camps in America, and detention. Instead, they have produced propaganda in place of real issues. When Hollywood does discuss internment and detention, it's almost always about World War II and the Holocaust. Literally thousands of films have been produced about the Holocaust, and yet one single film that addresses the potential for a Holocaust in the United States is stopped mid-production after its director is murdered. Seems a bit odd, doesn't it? They don't want Americans, Canadians, and other Western countries to know what is coming. And that is a plan to intentionally collapse Western society. If you don't believe me, read the plan that's been in the books for over a century. Planned out by the Illuminati and penned by Albert Pike back in the 1800s in his 3 World War predictions. Gray State was simply too threatening. It revealed too much, not just the obvious points of what could happen with the collapse of a society, things like martial law, food shortages, and a provisional government. It goes beyond this. David knew a secret, and he left it inside of the trailer for Gray State, in plain sight. David Crowley used the Illuminati's favorite game against the notorious cabal. It's a game they've played with the human race for years. They provide clues about the future to toy with us. They did it with 9/11. They've done it with other major catastrophes. It's called predictive programming. On occasion, though, they get outsmarted at their own game. What was David's hidden message inside the Gray State? And could it be the reason for his death? Perhaps the scariest part of Gray State's conceptual trailer is this character here, who appears to be operating a guillotine. David Crowley was very intentional in this frame of the movie. He added something that I believe he wanted the people to know about. Who is the identity of this executioner? If you look closely, you will see that this terrifying character is wearing something around his waist. It appears to look like an apron. The executioner wears a Freemason apron, complete with the all-seeing eye, the compass, and the 2 pillars. I do believe David Crowley is trying to tell us something. He is telling us that the organization behind the French and American revolutions, the organization behind the Italian Revolution of 1830, the organization that outlined a plan to overtake the Vatican in a document called the Alta Vendita, the organization behind the Trail of Tears and the deaths of thousands of Native Americans under Freemason Grand Master Andrew Jackson, the organization behind the Ku Klux Klan in the United States post-Civil War and its rebirth in 1915, the organization behind the detonations at Hiroshima and Nagasaki during 33rd degree Freemason Harry Truman's presidency. These are men with a radical revolutionary agenda throughout the entire world because they worship and follow a radical revolutionary deity, the first to have led a revolt against the Most High Lord. David Crowley knew something, and he was trying to warn the people. The ones behind the FEMA death camps the guillotines, and the detention of Americans, it's the Freemasons. They're planning a second American Revolution.
Problem, reaction, solution. It's a mind manipulation technique that avoids not only opposition to what is the goal of the manipulators, it actually manipulates people to demand they do what they want to do anyway. You start by secretly creating a problem in the world. You then use the media, which isn't difficult, to wind up public opinion in relation to your manufactured problem to the point where public opinion utters the classic words, "Something must be done. This can't go on. What are they going to do about it?" And at that point, those who created the problem and got someone else to be blamed for it wound up that public reaction, then openly in the public arena, in the parliaments of the world, in the newspapers and on the television, offer the solutions to the problems they have created.
The things that I'm going to tell you about today are horrendous, but the flip side of it is some of the things that the New World Order and the Illuminati know, if they were put to good use, would be fantastic. But if you saw what I've seen, it would make you angry that these people are taking what could be used for the elevation of mankind, and they're using it to enslave us.
Evil men have already divided up the world into regions, and they've got it all planned. They want to rule the world. Their goal is to reduce the population to 500 million, with a few of them as the elite get to rule the world. God has plans for the world, and so does Satan. And Satan's plan is no people here, maybe just a few, and a one-world government. The Bible says perilous times shall come. The people will be fierce, despisers of those that are good. Christians are going to be absolutely hated.
Develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't such a crisis.
We know the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm?
But I do have one question. During the crisis, or any time that you're aware of, has the Federal Reserve or Treasury participated in any gold swaps arrangements? The Federal Reserve does not own any gold at all. We have not owned gold since 1934.
Congress shall now vote for approval of H.R. 8791, the Homeland Terrorism Preparedness Bill. Said bill requests emergency response funding up to and including I'm sorry, this section is classified.
Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay, and that eating shellfish is an abomination? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application?
Readings have told me, for what it's worth, that some of us will be able to have ascended abilities. I mean, full-on ascended abilities prior to the actual shift happening. So that would be very cool, because what we're expecting after 2012 is a 100 times more harmonious utopian world with
things like time travel, levitation, instant telepathy, instant healing, telekinesis are as common and as everyday as breathing.
I want to tell you about a few of the things that I have learned during these last 5 years of intensive research. Perhaps the most startling thing that I can share with you is that all of the conspiracy theories that you've ever heard about one world government, about the UN takeover of the world, all of those conspiracies have now been laid to rest. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. It's all published. The UN-funded Commission on Global Governance began meeting in 1992 in earnest and met for 4 years, and last fall released their final report. It is entitled Our Global Neighborhood.
If the Bible is simply a book of myths, fairy tales, and stories, then it is disturbingly accurate in describing what we see unfolding in our current world climate. In my personal journey, I've come to the conclusion that the biblical worldview best explains the origin of evil and its many symptoms to mankind. It explains human suffering and the inescapable reality of death and decay that we experience in this world. But most importantly, it reveals why mankind has used deception as its most powerful and reliable instrument to carry out the plan set in motion by an ancient hate. This sacred mission of the world elite has been the primary motivation for the establishments of several layers upon layers of systems in this world. The following sectors are the major components of infiltration in this plan. They include the political, economic, military, scientific, educational, technological, and social facets, with the spiritual ideologies being the main ingredient guiding this massive deception. Many of these facets overlap and build on each other. Using these various components of human society, the world elite are tirelessly working to allow the formation of a one-world currency, massive depopulation, a one-world religion, and of course, a one-world government. With the speed at which things are changing and evolving, never in human history has this plan been more attainable than today. But as I sorted through the many tentacles of this plan, I found that not only are we, the people of the world, victims, but the people who promote and continue to instigate the New World Order and the promise of a new age are perhaps the most deceived and are the ultimate victims.
The idea of what the ultimate goal for the New World Order is something that bothered me a lot in my early and really a lot of my research for what the New World Order was, as I was learning things like, the stuff in the food and the water and all the stuff that you learn, the genocide and the planned population reduction and the mind control and all the stuff that was going on. What did it all mean? What was it leading up to? The control grid, the cameras and the one world government and the one world economy and all this stuff. What did it mean? Because the thing that got me is what happens if they get it? What happens if they finally control everybody? It's a total lockdown, New World Order, 1984, Brave New World, whatever. It actually is that system. What then? Is it all going to just end and everybody sits back and they drink lemonade and say, hey, we did it, guys? But then the connection to Satanism is really what started to pique my interest early on, and that they were theistic, Satanists. They really did believe that Satan was God, and they actively worshipped him and received instructions from the spirit world. That was what tripped me out, and to see that network and every door that was kicked down, investigation led to somewhere some Satanistic connection. So the answer to what the ultimate goal and the question of who or what do I believe is behind it is the same. That is the Antichrist. The system is being built around us, the control grid, the economy, everything is being built to force everyone to worship the Antichrist. That is what this is all about. That's what makes everything make sense. It's the one component that makes everything make sense. And so what is behind it is a spiritual agenda, as it says in Ephesians 6:12. But it's also something that experientially that you can see in the research of the New World Order, that they are attending rituals, they are receiving instruction from those rituals, and that instruction is to do the nuts and bolts things, to create the system, to do this, to do the poisoning or whatever, all the different conspiracies that are a part of that have some sort of mechanism or use in this future world government, world religion, world economy, which has one purpose, isn't to extract the worship of humanity for an ancient cherub.
Tom Horn, in his book Apollyon Rising 2012, stated, quote, "Behind the scenes and beyond view of the world's uninitiated members, the alchemy and rituals of the occult masters, Illuminists, Masons, Bonesmans, Bilderbergers, and Bohemians have combined to harmonize so completely within recent U.S. foreign and domestic policies as to clearly point to a terrifying civil conjecture, a near future horizon upon which a leader of indescribable brutality will appear. Although this false Prince of Peace will seem at first to hold unique answers to life's most challenging questions, ultimately he will make the combined depravities of Antiochus Epiphanes, Hitler, Stalin, and Genghis Khan look like child's play."
So I really see what's going to happen there is there's going to be some person who's just born as a man, he grows up, I believe he's going to be part of the secret societies, he's going to have tremendous influence and power and access to all kinds of high-tech stuff. And among that will be the process known as recombinant DNA. And with recombinant DNA, you can actually open up a gene or a DNA strand, and you can insert a foreign gene into that. So I think what's going to happen is he's going to take Satan's DNA, Satan's genetic code, and he's going to insert it into his own body. And then he is going to become a chimera. He's going to become the beast by actually going through this transformation. The crazy thing is that we have the technology. We know that the sons of God came and did this back in the days of Noah. So we have a biblical precedence for this. And I think we're seeing these kinds of things happening already today.
To understand the biblical worldview of the New World Order, we must first look at the fall of mankind as recorded in Genesis 3. This chapter reveals the origin of the plan, who's behind it, and where it's going. No other ancient text reveals so much about the nature of evil and its methods than the Bible, and this is where it all begins. We all know the story. Adam and Eve were created by God in the Garden of Eden. God's creation was good, and mankind was very good. God had one commandment for Adam and Eve to follow. A serpent came and tempted Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is where it all begins. Prior to this point, mankind was not susceptible to death, but Satan had other plans. The first lie ever recorded in human history comes from the mouth of Satan himself. Satan, being the father of lies, was able to redefine what good meant. Upholding to the traits of a great deception, Satan's lie contained some truth. But to understand how this lie has permeated throughout history and is being used to create the New World Order, we must break down this passage. Satan knew that when they ate of the fruit of this tree, that mankind would be subject to death. This lie is the foundation for New Age ideas like reincarnation. It is the idea that even though we die, there is no heaven or hell, but instead we return with another opportunity to attain enlightenment. It is also the one lie that many of the world elite believe today, which is that through the use of intellect, technology, and science, man will achieve immortality. This will become more obvious as we look into the sacred promise or ancient hope held close to those who are at work for the New World Order. Satan was implying here that secret knowledge and wisdom will be available to them. This is the main proponent behind the nature of secrecy which all secret societies possess. It is the idea that unattainable information will be partitioned to those who submit to the request of the one who holds the knowledge. It also plays on the hope promoted by the New Age movement, which claims that we are all spiritually evolving into a higher consciousness, and that if one would only tap into this universal energy force, they would realize that they are God. The New World Order and its components, secret societies, New Age movement, transhumanist movement, and even the alien agenda in many ways is predicated on this one lie. The idea that man would become God is the elusive carrot on a stick that has been behind many, if not all, of man's attempts to acquire power, authority, and dominion over the masses while conquering death and nature in the process. Furthermore, we can trace ideas like pantheism and the concept that God is a force, or that everything within the universe is God and thus we are God, back to this lie. It is the ultimate deception because it plays on human pride. It is the driving force behind ideas such as morality is relative and karma. It is the denial of evil and accountability to sin. This is the core of the Luciferian doctrine. It is the blueprint to what the select group of men have been working on for centuries. Exclusive knowledge to achieve immortality and become gods, all without the help of the Creator God, but by our own use of intellect. As we will come to see, this idea, which goes by many names like the Sacred Promise and an Ancient Hope, has been sought after by men for centuries.
Here's the way they look at it. Here's their metaphor for the end of innocence. Adam and Eve were held prisoner in the Garden of Eden by an unjust, cruel, and vindictive God. Until Lucifer, through his agent Satan, set man free from this garden by giving him the gift of intellect. Through the use of intellect, man will conquer the earth, will conquer nature, and will himself become God. It's taught in every Masonic temple in this land. Every secret brotherhood, every secret society, every mystical temple, every occult organization teaches the Luciferian philosophy.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
I believe, and if you read esoteric wisdom philosophers and teachers and so on, this ancient hope is the idea that there has been a plan, an ambition contained within secret societies for thousands of years to resurrect the lost empire of Atlantis. And for those who don't know, the whole idea of the new Atlantis and the New World Order and the New Order of the Ages are, if you read the writings of these societies, they are all one and the same thing.
The ancient hope, of which Bush refers to in his second inauguration speech, demonstrates that Bush, or at the very least the authors of his speech, are well aware of the plan initiated by an ancient occult hierarchy, now operating as secret societies to forge a world empire. The promise to those who help build this empire is that they will attain godhood themselves and become a part of a family of perfected human beings. Manly P. Hall, a 33-degree Freemason, an occultist and regarded as one of the greatest authorities on the topic of secret societies and Freemasonry in particular, reveals in his book, The Secret Destiny of America, quote, "In this way, the old dream of the philosophic empire descended from the ancient world to modern time. Secret societies still exist, and regardless of the intemperance of the times, they will continue to flourish until the quest is complete. For more than 3,000 years, secret societies have labored to create the background of knowledge necessary to the establishment of an enlightened democracy among the nations of the world." End quote. Hall goes on to explain that America was not founded as a constitutional republic based on biblical principles, but rather a massive experiment of social engineering formed out of the principal visions described in Sir Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, in 1627. The basic principle was that the goal of attaining human perfection and a utopia that would come with it is the ultimate plan put forth and worked on since antiquity. He goes on to say, quote, "The supreme human purpose is the perfection of man. This must come first, and when this end has been achieved, all good things will inevitably follow." End quote. These principles all stem back from what is known as the ancient mystery school teachings. The ancient mystery school teachings is an esoteric, spiritual wisdom and philosophy passed down by the initiated elite for centuries. It is in fact one and the same as the Luciferian doctrine that one day man will become God through the use of his own intellect. This is the religion of the New World Order, which is operating in various degrees under various secret societies, cults, and even high-ranking religious circles. The origin and understanding of the mystery schools and its history can be found in theosophical writings. Keith Thompson, in his film Aquarius, Age of Evil, does a full expose on the founding of theosophy, its connection to secret societies, the New Age movement, Zeitgeist, and ultimately the New World Order. In a document entitled The Mystery Schools, written by Grace Noach of the Theosophical Society, reveals the origin of the ancient mystery teachings. She opens the document, quote, "Millions upon millions of years ago, in the darkness of prehistory, humanity was an infant, a child of Mother Nature, unawakened, dreamlike, wrapped in the cloak of mental somnolence. Recognition of egoity slept, instinctual consciousness alone was active. Like a stream of brilliance across the horizon of time, divine beings, Manasaputras, sons of mind, descended among the sleeping humans, and with the flame of intellectual solar fire lighted the wick of latent mind, and lo, the thinker stirred. Self-consciousness wakened, and man became a dynamo of intellectual and emotional power, capable of love, of hate, of glory, of defeat. Having knowledge, he acquired power. Acquiring power, he chose. Choosing, he fashioned the fabric of his future, and the perception of this ran like wine through his veins." End quote. She goes on to explain the Atlantean connection as, quote, "Time marched on and the race waxed lustily in power. As Lemuria gave birth to Atlantis, the third race to the fourth, the fiercest battle was waged. The war between the Lords of Light and Truth and the Lords of Darkness and Ignorance. Thus were established some 4 or 5 million years ago, when Atlantis was threatening to destroy itself through spiritual iniquity, the first mystery schools. From these early centers sprang other mystery schools in all parts of the Atlantean world. By the time the Atlanteans were in their heyday of material splendor, these schools were working their hardest to stem the increasing tide of sorcery." End quote. H.P. Blavatsky, founder of Theosophy and touted as one of the greatest writers on the topic of the occult and esoteric wisdom, stated that her book, The Secret Doctrine, is the reemergence of the ancient mystery school teachings, as, quote, "The secret doctrine is the accumulated wisdom of all ages, the mysterious power of occult symbolism, that the facts which have actually occupied countless generations of initiated seers and prophets to marshal, to set down and explain in the bewildering series of evolutionary progress. It is the uninterrupted record covering thousands of generations of seers whose respective experiences were made to test and to verify the traditions passed orally by one early race to another of the teachings of higher and exalted beings who watch over the childhood of humanity." End quote. Alice Bailey, a theosophist and writer, co-founder of Lucis Trust, formerly known as Lucifer Publishing, wrote in her occult classic known as The Externalization of the Hierarchy regarding the initiation of all humanity into the ancient mystery schools as, quote, "This little-known divine energy now streams out from Shambhala. It embodies in itself the energy which lies behind the world crisis of the moment. It is the will of God to produce certain racial and momentous changes in the consciousness of the race which will completely alter man's attitude to life and his grasp of the spiritual, esoteric, and subjective essentials of living. It is this force which will bring about, in conjunction with the energy of love, that tremendous crisis, imminent in the human consciousness, which we call the second crisis, the initiation of the race into the mystery of the ages, into that which has been hid from the beginning." End quote. The foundation behind all that is the ancient mystery school teachings are founded upon the idea that, once again, man was given the gift of creativity and intellect so that we ourselves can achieve godhood and become the divine beings of which we were supposed to be through the process of evolution. This idea goes directly against biblical Christianity, who offers salvation to anyone who believes in Jesus Christ. This is why the modern era writers on the topic of the ancient mysteries go to great lengths to try to discredit Christianity, and why secret societies have infiltrated its religious institutions to corrupt many sectors of Christianity, allowing historians to paint a picture of the faith which is utterly false. Most of the attempted discrediting of Christianity in these writings refer to the idea that was presented in the first section of the film Zeitgeist. In fact, it is my belief that Zeitgeist is the carrying out of what Alice Bailey referred to as the initiation of the race into the mystery of the ages. Bailey, in the same book, Externalization of the Hierarchy, goes on to describe her opinion about Christianity as, quote, "Christianity must also be overthrown because it is based on Jewish sources. The rule of Christ must come to an end because only the rule of force is right. In the world order of the Axis powers, the individual has no rights, has no freedom except insofar as he serves the state. There will be no liberty of thought or conscience. All issues will be decided by the state, and the private citizen will have no right to an opinion. Men will be drafted like slaves into the service of the state."
There's something weird going on with Walmart. Are we now seeing the true form of one of the world's largest companies? Is Walmart an entity of the government, operating in the private sector, meant to usher in martial law? Is its purpose found even in its name? I will take you through 6 facts that expose Walmart's deep connection to the US government and its preparation for mandatory RFID chipping and martial law coming to the US. I would highly advise you to listen carefully to this entire video. The information contained in it is extremely important. Fact number 1. To understand the truth about Walmart, you first need a history lesson. The founder, Sam Walton, is long deceased, but his legacy is very much alive. What is he remembered for? Well, you may not know that Sam Walton was a part of the U.S. intelligence agency during World War II and a security chief over internment camps located inside of the United States. These camps held hundreds of thousands of whites of German and Italian descent and Asians of Japanese descent. They were held there after FDR violated their constitutional rights. Sam Walton oversaw these prisoners of war. The Walmart U.S. government connection is not new, you see. It goes way, way back. Armed with that information, let us continue to fact number 2. From 2001 through 2016, Walmart has received an estimated $50 to $100 billion in secret subsidies granted by the U.S. government. We know several industries are subsidized by the government to keep prices low. But why Walmart? There are entire websites dedicated to following Walmart's grants, tax breaks, and earmarks. These websites unanimously agree that Walmart has received tens of billions of dollars in kickbacks over the years. Why are they getting so much money? Is it merely to keep their prices low? Or is it for other expenditures? Fact number 3. Walmart has struck a deal with the U.S. government, hiring 130,000 reserve, active duty, and veterans in the United States over the past 3 years. A massive force of highly trained and skilled soldiers. It's an odd fact, because recently they just fired thousands of regular workers and closed 269 stores because of financial problems, or so they said. Walmart explained that their 2016 store closings were an attempt to save money. So why did they just hire 130,000 new employees? Of course, we always celebrate when veterans are treated with respect and given good jobs, but this is strange. 130,000 sounds more like a small army. In fact, Walmart's soldiers make up 10% of the company's total U.S. workforce. That is a huge proportion of new hires, especially for a company who just claimed that they had financial difficulty 6 months ago. What in the world is Walmart doing with its new army? Fact number 4. In the last 20 days, 24 homicides or attempted murders have happened on Walmart's premises around the United States. These crimes range from shootings to stabbings to arson to suicide to attempted vehicular homicide. Having reviewed these alleged crimes, I ask the question, are they even legitimate? Or are they FEMA exercises that Walmart is carrying out alongside the Department of Homeland Security? Many details from the Walmart crimes aren't adding up, and it makes me question the validity of the entire event. For example, I'll play a 911 call from the Amarillo, Texas Walmart shooting. In it, a witness says that 2 gunmen are clearly involved, but later, only one is killed by the SWAT team and no hostages are injured.
6-3 to base, be advised, we got 1 suspect with a hostage and there is a second suspect somewhere in the store. We are in the store.
My question is, were Amarillo and other Walmart shootings legitimate? The audio in the Amarillo case told us that there were 2 shooters, not 1. Likewise, in other alleged massacres around the U.S., major discrepancies were made that could make one question the validity of the event. In San Bernardino, there were supposed to be 3 shooters, not 2. In Orlando, it was reported early on that 1 or 2 additional people were involved in the 3-hour rampage. People interviewed claimed that the additional people were holding the door shut to prevent escape of clubgoers, yet police insist only Omar Mateen was involved. Why did these police reports contain so many contradictions to the witnesses of the event? Are these DHS exercises in preparation for an outbreak of anarchy in America? Fact number 5. Let's revisit a major point I brought up in a prior video about Walmart. The discounter is literally in the back pocket of the U.S. government, cooperating on a variety of different initiatives. One of these was a massive introduction of RFID chipping into Walmart's supply chain back around 2003, introduced alongside the Department of Defense. Why was the DoD involved with Walmart on RFID? Walmart was also cooperating with DHS Secretary Janet Napolitano on an initiative to report suspicious people in their facilities. Why is the DHS working with Walmart on this? Additionally, several former Walmart executives are currently working for the U.S. government in FEMA positions in emergency preparedness. For example, Walmart disaster manager Brian Coons was appointed to spearhead Florida Emergency Response and Disaster Readiness Divisions. Why are these former Walmart executives being promoted in the government to major positions of disaster response. Fact number 6. Walmart has recently cooperated with Omar Mateen's former employer called G4S on initiatives in its U.S. stores involving security. Could there be a connection between what happened in Orlando and Walmart? Before I address this, I want to caution viewers. Please do not believe what you are being told on television about Orlando. The elites have already gotten what they want, and that is an outcry for heightened security. In order to have security, they'll have to take away guns. They'll have to use more biometrics and RFID to track you. They'll have to put up more cameras to watch you. We're living in 1984. Fear incited by Islamic terrorism is their tool of choice to get you to give in. Notice the cry for gun control after Orlando, the cry for more security. Do not be fooled by their agenda. The lamestream media has convinced everybody about Mateen's radical Islamic ties in order to scare you. I am not interested in the misleading Islamic terrorism narrative that began in 1945 and accelerated in 2001. The narrative is the same. Islamic terrorist attack happens, followed by calls for more gun control, the Patriot Act, more internet monitoring, more cameras, more things to stop a future event like this from happening. It's the same response every single time. Once bin Laden got old, once he didn't cause the fear that they needed him to cause, they got rid of him. And then they created scary ISIS. Mateen's ISIS connection is a fabrication to get you to submit. I'm not buying it. I am more interested in his 9-year career with a company called G4S, which is the largest security company in the world. If you've ever seen the movie Resident Evil, G4S might bring to mind the Umbrella Corporation, a secretive organization that operates in the shadows. G4S is the 3rd largest employer in the world with a virtual stranglehold over cybersecurity and cyber data in almost every country. It does have other interests, however, including RFID chipping. The company states on its website that one of its goals is to use RFID to track assets and people anywhere in the world. Back in 2011, G4S put in a patent request with the US government for an RFID device that would be used to track people who were incarcerated. No joke. The RFID device is tamper-resistant, worn on the hand or wrist, and is meant to tag and follow prisoners. The patent was just made public in February of 2016, and now G4S will work closely with Walmart. An article published in April of 2016 indicates that Walmart and G4S quietly signed a deal, an agreement on a huge initiative that will change Walmart's entire system of payment in all stores. There will be a gradual rollout of the new system until it is fully implemented. In conclusion, I believe there is beyond ample evidence to suggest that Walmart is serving a major purpose as we head toward the Marshall State. Walmart store closings keep getting stranger and stranger. Here are 5 facts about why Walmart's closings are not normal and may signal that massive unrest is coming. Number 1. Walmart originally closed 5 stores in the West and Southern United States in April 2015 without publishing a press release. Workers in Walmart were notified the day of that they would no longer be employed with the company, resulting in 2,200 lost jobs. No employee was offered an explanation, and only after significant pressure did Walmart finally put out a very strange press release. The stores closed due to plumbing problems, and the estimated time for their reopening would be 6 months. Number 2. Walmart announced that in 2016 it would close an additional 269 stores around the world. 154 of them would be in the United States, but a lesser-known statistic might actually be more important. And this is the fact that Walmart closed 10% of its stores in Brazil this year. Brazil is currently in a huge economic recession that is quickening to a depression. Dilma Rousseff of Brazil has called for Brazil's military to marshal the streets of large cities due to rioting, protests, and widespread distress. If Walmart's closings in Brazil are any indication of what's coming, then America has much to be concerned about. Number 3. On top of the 269 store closings in 2016, Walmart has closed additional stores for unusual reasons, including a Wiley, Texas Walmart, which was hit with hail damage during a storm. Walmart announced that the store would be closed until further notice. Those sources noted that the hail was marble-sized and did not cause damage to the Walmart in Wiley. Yet, the Walmart closed anyway. Additionally, brand new Walmart stores across the nation are being shuttered. Walmart claims that this is because of their sharpened focus on portfolio management.
Store opened just 12 short months ago, the big ribbon cutting attended by local officials. Now the new neighbor they welcomed with open arms will shut its doors for the last time in just 2 weeks.
Why would you go to the expense of building a building and putting a store, and then all of a sudden, and they tell their employees they got 2 weeks?
Interestingly, just last month, Google, a known partner working alongside the CIA, accidentally leaked a map showing nearly every Walmart in the United States permanently closed. Naturally, the lamestream media did not report this, but an Arkansas local newspaper did. Google was quick to explain that the map was just an accident, and that it was working to fix the problem. Yet it is strange that only Walmarts were shown to be closed on the Google Maps, perhaps a glimpse of a future reality. Number 4. After store closings in 2015, several observers noted that there was a ton of security outside and surrounding the Walmart stores. In fact, there was 24-hour surveillance. Later, FBI and Department of Homeland Security vehicles were photographed outside of the store. And not only this, but tanks, Humvees, and military helicopters were seen around these Walmarts. The stores were emptied of their contents, literally millions of products, and razor wire was erected around the sites. The pharmacies of these Walmarts were left open, and certain individuals who went in to fill their prescriptions took photos of the stores from the inside that were gutted, the walls not having any products on them. Now, it appears that Walmart is doing the same thing with at least 269 additional stores. One Walmart in Montana has already been transformed into a prison, while other Walmarts, including one in the state of Ohio, look like they have become detention centers. A video from 2010 posted by Janet Napolitano of the Department of Homeland Security proves that a relationship has existed between Walmart and the government involving Homeland Security.
Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security begins with hometown security. That's why I'm pleased that Walmart is helping to make our communities more safe and secure. If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask a Walmart manager for assistance.
Why Walmart, one of the biggest retailers in the world, is intricately involved in the DHS is a mystery. Number 5. What you may not know about Walmart might actually shock you. Walmart is an industry leader and pilot of biometric and RFID technology, becoming one of the first Fortune 500 companies to employ RFID throughout its supply chain. Back in 2012 and 2013, Walmart brought Solo Health stations into their store and announced that they were a part of an Obamacare initiative. What very few people took note of was the machine's ability to scan RFID chip technology. Specifically, it had an apparatus underneath the machine that was used to scan RFID chips and to collect huge quantity of data on individuals. An RFID chip was one method of activating the machine's memory, which allowed it to store data on literally thousands upon thousands of people who used it. The Solo Health machine has been under quiet production for many years, with Walmart as a pilot company testing out these machines. Much of what Walmart has done with Solo Health stations has gone under the radar. And in case you don't believe me, I want to read an article from an online publication called Modern Materials Handling. They document that Walmart and the Department of Defense have a long-standing partnership on RFID technology initiation. Going back to the early 2000s, this partnership was to track items as a part of the supply chain. This article goes on to speculate that RFID will be introduced on a much wider scale in 2016, and that RFID needs to be reinvented. Walmart and the Department of Defense have worked together on this. So was RFID just a project to track items, to track products in the store? Or perhaps was it for another reason, to track something else? Are Walmarts now transitioning to their true purpose? A three-part show on Sci-Fi Channel portrays a curious scenario set in the future. Childhood's End is a television show based on the 1953 novel by the great Arthur C. Clarke, a science fiction writer. This show aired just recently in the midst of the holiday season for many. At a time when many remember the birth of Jesus into the world, Sci-Fi Channel decided to air a show that depicts alien disclosure, the arrival of a satanic look-alike, and the eventual destruction of the world by fire. The themes contained in Childhood's End show an agenda is underway. It has been for quite some time. Clarke's novel is centered around an alien disclosure, where an armada of alien vessels make contact with the Earth. The aliens claim that they have come for the purpose of assisting humanity through a golden age, a utopia, a time of peace, security, and prosperity for all upon the earth. Not all of the people accept this utopia. Some of them protest because they believe in the God of Scripture. In the show, one of the characters' mothers kills herself because of the disclosure. She views her faith in God as incompatible with disclosure of alien life. Despite these people, these protesters, a vast majority of the world is accepting of the utopia, and many abandon whatever faith they once had in the notion of God. The aliens and the people of Earth commonly refer to this time period of peace and prosperity on the earth as the golden age of humanity. Literally, that's what they say repeatedly throughout the show. People never seem to get sick in this golden age. There is no war either. There is one who is appointed as the supervisor of Earth, one who helps to usher in the golden age of humanity. His name is Corellin. For many years, the people of Earth never see him. Eventually, they do see him when he is unveiled. Corellin tells one of the characters the reason why he does not disclose his appearance to the people of Earth. It's because they are not ready to accept what he looks like. But later in the show, he is revealed. What's interesting about his depiction in the show is that it is different from the way he is depicted in the book. In fact, a New York Post article wrote that the director of the show intentionally manipulated Corellin's look, changing him from an alien profile to a character that literally looks like a rendering of Satan. When Corellin is unveiled to humanity, he looks suspiciously like the unveiling of the satanic statue in Detroit that happened this past summer. In fact, Corellin, the supervisor of Earth, is 9 feet tall and flanked by 2 children when he is unveiled, a girl on the left and a boy on the right. The satanic statue is also 9 feet tall, with 2 children on the side of Satan, a girl on the left and a boy on the right. Both the statue and the scene in Childhood's End depict the children looking up to the satanic character with longing, with great admiration.
Hello? There is no need to be afraid.
It is Corellin who will be overseeing the Golden Age, the evolution of humanity, and the transition to peace and prosperity. He has an interest in the children of Earth. It's later revealed that these children are no longer the property of humanity and are not fully human anyway. They are taken away from their human parents. The parents are left to face the apocalypse. Occult symbols are put on display throughout the show. First off, Corellin has the ability to manipulate and control time and space. He does this on many occasions for the purpose of ensuring that humanity enters the Golden Age without any issues. There are multiple references to the fact that Corellin and the alien invaders are assisting humanity through evolution towards a higher state of consciousness. These aliens are called the Overlords, and they have been on Earth once before.
Why do they look like demons? Like our exact idea of devils. They look like our idea of devils because they've been here before. We've been waiting for them. We knew they were coming, so when they brought about this change, it scared us on some deep level because we could never stop it. A relationship between all living things and the stars themselves. Perhaps we've always known the Overlords were coming.
Okay, so because of some crackpot ancient philosophy, we knew they were coming to do good. So then why turn them into the personification of evil?
Humanity has waited expectantly for them to return. They are not on Earth for the purpose of destroying the Earth, but to do good. They happen to look like the human conception of demons, but according to one character, humanity has incorrectly associated these creatures with evil. Other occult symbols like the eye, the pyramid, the as above so below, repeat references to the Golden Age. These symbols show up on multiple occasions. In one scene, we see a man is saved
from being shot when the supervisor of Earth, Corellin, intervenes and completely halts the dimension of time. After this, Corellin opens a door, a way out, a way for this character to escape the crisis he is in. Behind the door is a paradise, and the man decides to walk through the door. Both of my channels have focused on the use of doors as a symbol, how doors are used to portray when constraints of time and space have been overcome. Here it is Corellin who has manipulated these dimensions.
Can you tell me what this means? Jennifer, what do you see?
I see all. The end begins.
The man who questions the little girl is holding the all-seeing eye with a pyramid. We also see the eye of Ra and a $1 bill that is flipped over. The director was intentional here, portraying the Novus Ordo Secularum right before the little girl named Jennifer says, quote, "I see all," unquote. Jennifer is the living human form of the eye, the advent of the eye and human flesh. She is the one who destroys the earth at the end, while Corellin is depicted as attempting to save species of animals off of the earth before its destruction. He takes these animals in his spaceship back to his home planet, where they will be preserved. Childhood's End shows the eventual destruction of Earth with fire. The utopia that all of humanity accepted didn't last. The era of peace and safety ended in decimation. One has to wonder whether this novel, adapted into a television show in 2015, was intentionally pointing us towards something that is coming. We are in the year of light, the Anno Lucius. A supervisor of Earth is coming. He is the Lord of the world. He is not Jesus Christ the Lord. Do not be fooled by their agenda.
So something that is worth looking back at again, I did cover this once, but I'm going to go back over some of the things in this because this just explains it so well. This is Pan's Labyrinth, Pan's Maze, Saturn's Maze, and it's again that whole Last Supper inversion, similar to what you do with the Eucharist, with the flesh of the beast, and it's the real flesh and blood, the grapes of wrath, the winepress of God's wrath, like in Revelation and in parables that Christ said. So here you've got the head of the table, you've got the beast. And the beast is androgynous, and it's the destroyer. And what he does in this scene really answers all the questions. I tell you, there is more truth in movies these days than probably in the actual news itself. It's all upside down. But people obviously wouldn't look for truth, perhaps, in things like this. So, here we see, she looks up at artwork. This is the destroyer, and it requires sacrifice. It's sacrificing children, just like Saturn. The ancient depictions of Saturn. This is the whole Hegelian dialectic again. This is the dragon versus Lucifer, the false Jesus. That, the 13th pillar, if you will. That is the female false Jesus, and it's the dragon or the beast at the head of the table, with the human flesh sacrifices on the Last Supper table. Remember the Last Supper before it's birthed, the whole thing. And those two are both the same beast. They're both of the same. It's Hegelian dialectic. False. Completely false battle. And the beast births itself. This whole place is room 101. This is the underworld. This is the abyss. This is where it is, trapped. And in the abyss, in the land of sleep and nod. And what we see with a lot of these things is that it's actually Revelation 9 that is often portrayed. Of course, in that you've got the king over the earth, Apollyon the destroyer, and that is exactly what this is. But this is the star that falls in the shaft, the key, the star being Lucifer. And this is the key, the whole ritual right here. It's all the whole ritual. And the time, the last hour, the last minute, 12 o'clock, like we've seen in Ipet Goat and so many different things. The time is running out. Of course, we've got the whole time shift, time change. So, the dagger, the sword in the stone. So, we're at the Last Supper scene, these little entities, demonic entities flying about. Look at the beast's skin. You notice how it is completely saggy, it is like he's lost a lot of weight. Well, that's because he's going to wake up hungry for flesh. So, just your red table, just like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. The same thing in the rabbit hole. So what she'll do now is she'll take a grape, which represents the blood, and the wine press of God's wrath. And when she takes that grape, she wakes up the beast. A ritual like this we've seen so many times across different music videos. So the beast wakes up from the consummation of the blood. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because in its hands it has the hole. Just like the crucifixion, the nail marks of Christ, the stigmata. And what it does is it puts the eye into the hole in the hand. And then it can see. So remember about the eye gate. The eye is the gateway. So it's like an inversion of Christ's wounds right there. And almost like the gate is the inversion of Christ's wounds. Like when Christ died, it was a nail in the coffin of the spiritual fallen, the wicked spirits of Satan, of everything. It was a mighty blow to Satan's kingdom. And just like you've got in Jeepers Creepers, you'll hear him say, it was the nail that was holding us in. So just like you have in the Jesuit logo, you've got the 3 nails and the monster. And it's all to do with the birth of the beast. And it is an inversion of the 3 nails. And just like you had in the Hamza hand, that is the vaginal female symbol. The gate. The rebirth. And I believe that, that is an age-old symbol. No one actually knows how far back that goes. But I believe there's a reason why they had to pierce Christ's hands. Spiritually. All of this is the Matrix. All of this is the fulfillment of the Matrix, right? So Christ's death had to be spot on to fulfill everything, to break the curse. It had to be. And we've seen how synchronised all this spiritual stuff is. It's to the T, guys. It's completely synchronised. Synchronicity across the board. The spiritual works like that, it seems to me. That it is. It's very precise. And Christ had to fulfill this in a very precise way. It had to be spot on. So, even when you think that Christ became flesh, Christ became the curse of the flesh. He died at 33, which is 6, carbon, flesh. His nail marks, the Vav, 666, the 3 nails. Carbon is 666. 666 is the number of a man. The beast comes from the flesh. That is our whole problem here. That is what we're trapped in the cell. So anyway, when this beast at the head of the table, he puts these eyes, remember vision, oculus, and he can see through those marks. So once again, the nail's removed and he can be reborn and he can see. It's the gate. She continues to eat the wine. Remember, this is a completely Hegelian battle. Don't pay attention to that, and the checkerboard floor, of course. So remember, this is just the same side squabbling, and he consumes the flesh. Now, I don't tend to do this sort of thing very often, because I don't think it's always necessary to do it. But just to show you that, I mean, there's a movie coming out soon called Under the Skin. And you'll see there that there are entities trapped underneath his skin. He is literally the embodiment of wicked spirits. So this is the whole process of the birthing of the beast birthing itself. Remember, the same sides down the shaft. Literally seeing with the eye gate in the nail marks in the hand, and the time is running out as she runs towards it. Of course, we all know how this ends. She will get out. It is the false Jesus. It is literally the Antichrist. It is their bridge here. It is the opposite of our Christ. So she draws her own portal, her own gate. And she lets herself out. Remember, Lucifer versus the dragon. Completely false battle. And there you go. That's it right there. And it is like an inversion of Christ's wounds. And there was definitely a reason why Christ was pierced for our transgressions in his hands and in his feet. And this is the truth, guys. And just to follow on from some comments from other people, a couple of people last time, I think there is deception in the name Jesus. I think there is. But I don't think it matters. If your intent is to seek the true Father through the name of Jesus Christ, and you intend the right thing, then you will reach the Father in the name of Jesus Christ. And he is the one who is our Messiah, Emmanuel, God with us. He is the Messiah and he is the Christ. Maybe we'll look into the name stuff again sometime, but just don't get bogged down by it. Everything in our language is riddled with spiritual deception, and we are even taught spelling at school. Our language, we speak spells, guys. The Father can see through that. He can see your heart. And I really, really hope that you reach to the Father and ask Christ to fill your abyss with the Spirit of life instead of death and the bottomless abyss.
A strange story was published in a local New Zealand newspaper called The Herald that caught my attention. It attempts to explain a mystery beam of light that was radiating out of the center of a volcano on the island of Rangitoto. This light beam was so powerful that it had many local residents puzzled. This initial beam illuminated the entire landscape. It was followed by 2 less impressive blue beams of light over the next 2 consecutive days. Many people were confused and took snapshots of the event. The government of New Zealand has offered an explanation for the beam. It was a ceremony of the Maori people to honor their culture, customs, and heritage. This explanation, however, is not true, and I will expose this later on in the video. In August and September of last year, several beams of light were spotted across the world. But the phenomena didn't stop in 2015. It has continued into 2016, including dazzling displays of light pillars that have shown up in China, the United States, including Alaska, Canada, Northern Europe, including strange beams of blue light that have appeared in the United Kingdom. Scientists have tried to explain the phenomena as ice crystals causing light from cities to form pillars in the sky, while others have said that the beams are part of an aurora borealis. Yet these explanations don't seem to work for all of the images. Most of the pictures aren't for major cities, where there are significant lights that could cause pillars. Additionally, some of the pillars are depicted by themselves without the background of an aurora. For example, this picture, which was snapped in 2016, shows a mysterious blue single beam of light radiating out of the apex of a Colorado mountain. You might remember last year there were several attempts to debunk these beams as photoshopped or a part of a camera skip. And while photoshopping could have been the reason for some of the beams, it doesn't explain all of them, including the one in New Zealand that was captured in multiple photos. For some reason, giant pillars of light are radiating into the sky. Some of them came out of the tops of pyramids and other megalithic structures. Some have suggested that the beams are part of Project Bluebeam, while others have suggested they could be a part of a ley line system, and still others believe they could be a sign that the veil is getting thinner. The Rangitoto beam is definitely not photoshopped. It was witnessed by dozens of New Zealanders who then went online to express concern and confusion. The government of New Zealand said that the beam was meant to honor the Maori, but I have a source who contradicts this claim. A subscriber to my channel who asked that her identity be withheld sent me a link to the story and picture of the beam. She told me that her husband is Maori. The Maori people are native to New Zealand. My source said that the Maori did not put on this light beam as a ceremony or a part of their culture, and that her husband has no idea how the beam of light is connected to the Maori. If we read the article, it says the following, quote, "The magical image is a gift from 13 of the region's iwi to celebrate the Maori identity and heritage of Tamaki Makaurau, the city in Auckland." Again, my source refutes that the lights have anything to do with Maori heritage or identity. So what on earth were these lights for? The article describes the beam as being made up of an installation, 33 powerful lights radiating into the sky, similar to the one used at Ground Zero in New York. The government of New Zealand even posted a video of the beam, except their version only shows 27 high-powered lights emitting a bright blue beam. Why was the beam coming out of the center of a volcano? And was the false explanation of 33 lights showing us, perhaps, who was really behind the beam?
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
I am not somebody who promotes same-sex marriage. I have to tell you, as I said, I've been going through an evolution. It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married. I am not somebody who promotes same-sex marriage. It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Been going through an evolution. Transforming.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
Transforming.
It is the institutionalization of sin, and when that happens, persecution happens.
At that first strike by the Assyrians, but then years later, they didn't repent, but years later, they enter into another conflict with Assyria. And what happens is this second conflict brings destruction to the land. You have the same people who brought the first strike of terror. They are the ones, the nation gets into another conflict, and they bring the calamity. Well, so I'm watching, is America going to be involved in another calamity, another thing there? Well, just recently, I was in the Capitol. The Lord called me to speak to members of Congress. The President made a speech that night. He announced we are going to war with ISIS. They are centered in the same area, ancient Assyria. That's Syria and Iraq. Iraq is ancient Assyria. They just took over Mosul, which is Nineveh. Yes. They are already being likened like no other people to the ancient Assyrians. They are bloodthirsty. They inflict terror on their people. They are an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, which means it's the same people. Here's the pattern: the same people, and they are, the Assyrians literally decapitated their victims and they put them on display. ISIS decapitates their victims, puts them on display in social media, just like what the Assyrians would do to this
inspire terror.
Yeah, so here we are. It's a bit chilling. We are now entering the second part of this.
Started shooting, and that's when we knew something was wrong, when everybody just dropped.
So here we are. It's a bit chilling. We are now entering the second part of this.
Tonight, chilling new details about the deadly rampage and the 3-hour standoff between police and a determined terrorist. Late night, couples dancing at the popular gay club Pulse.
The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right which heaven itself hath ordained. In other words, if America should ever turn away from God and his ways, if it should ever disregard his eternal rules of order and right, then his blessings, the smiles of heaven, would be removed from the land.
We are fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
What happened at the end of June was a tectonic event. It represented a rejection, a profound rejection of the nation's Judeo-Christian foundation and the Word of God on which this nation was initially built. It is the institutionalization of sin, and when that happens, persecution happens.
Tonight, the chilling details of what the gunman said during that 3-hour siege.
Just after 2 a.m., Omar Mateen arrives heavily armed with a high-powered assault rifle, a handgun, multiple rounds of ammunition.
Islam is not part of the problem. It is an important part of promoting peace.
He had retreated with several hostages, calling 911 30 minutes after the gunfire started, telling the dispatcher, "I want to let you know I'm in Orlando and I did the shootings."
What I can tell you is that while the killer made these murderous statements, he did so in a chilling, calm, and deliberate manner.
When asked his name, Omar Mateen responds, "My name is, I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi of the Islamic State."
This is a federal terrorism investigation led by the FBI.
At 2:30 a.m., the gunman calls 911, hanging up twice before a dispatcher calls him back. And there, on the phone, Mateen pledges allegiance to ISIS.
There are strong indications of radicalization by this killer. and a potential inspiration by foreign terrorist organizations.
The regime pledges allegiance to ISIS.
Islam is not part of the problem, part of the problem, part of the problem. It is an important part of promoting peace.
There are strong indications of radicalization by this killer.
And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
The newest terrorist organization known as ISIS is overtaking Al-Qaeda's reign as public enemy #1.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the left's utter incompetence has completely ruined our foreign policy, now creating chaos all around the world and a crisis right here in America. Now, the suicide bombings in Turkey and the terror attack in Orlando, they're just the most recent results of major missteps at every single turn over the past 7.5 years by President Obama and Hillary Clinton.
ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, driving toward Baghdad. The jihadist group so extreme, even Al-Qaeda wants nothing to do with them.
There is a mosque in every state in our union, and over 1,200 mosques within our borders.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
Islamic militants are unleashing brutality and bloodshed.
It is important for Western countries to avoid impeding Muslim citizens from practicing religion as they see fit. It is important for Western countries to avoid impeding Muslim citizens from practicing religion as they see fit.
What would happen? The worst of the worst. But I thought it would happen. The worst of the worst.
I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear.
Where? Let's just say I put him in a hole to away the hole. There's rumors, Amanda, that some of them have abilities. Oh, yeah. I have seen the banners. Maybe Superman was some kind of beacon for them to creep back in the shadows.
The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. I agree.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
We'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
There is a mosque in every state in our union. The biblical and the base.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
And over 1,200 mosques within our borders.
Maybe Superman was some kind of beacon for them to creep back from the shadows. Maybe Superman was some kind of beacon for them to creep back from the shadows.
Now let's start from the beginning. Now, Barack Obama, remember, he kicked off his presidency by going on that apology tour. He was promising a new relationship with the Muslim world.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
The enduring faith
My Muslim faith
of over 1 billion people is so much bigger than the narrow hatred of a few. I also know civilization's debt to Islam. The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. I also know civilization's debt to Islam. The enduring faith.
My Muslim faith.
American Muslims have enriched the United States.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
There is a mosque in every state in our union.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
And over 1,200 mosques within our borders. Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
And I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear. I also know civilization's debt to Islam. We are no longer a Christian nation.
He was promising a new relationship with the Muslim world, which of course paved the way for instability and of course an explosion of violence now.
It is important for Western countries to avoid impeding Muslim citizens from practicing religion as they see fit.
At home, the White House has dangerously ignored the rising threat of radical Islam. Get this, the FBI now says that there are active ISIS-related cases now in all 50 states with over 1,000 total investigations.
There is some fear that some of these refugees may actually be posing as refugees, but they might actually be Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists trying to sneak into Europe or the United States. What do you make of that?
Well, certainly that's a possibility. I mean, you can't dismiss that out of hand.
We should be conscious of the potential that Daesh may attempt to embed agents within that population.
The group is probably exploring a variety of means for infiltrating operatives into the West, including in refugee flows.
And when it comes to America taking in refugees from Syria, well, you know the president, Hillary Clinton, they have flat out ignored